Hello, hello. It's great to be here. I think, am I the first Croatian to be here? So I am the first Croatian to be here. And I would be in Croatia, I would be a northerner. But if I had spoken with my own accent, nobody would consider me posh. They would actually laugh, because people from north of Croatia, they have this archaic Croatian that nobody else speaks. So whenever I try to be very serious, people just laugh at me. So it's good that I can speak English this time. And I will share with you a little story today. And this is a story about Frukons. Okay? And you will see what Frukons are. We will come to that later. They do have some scientific explanation. But let me start a little bit with a little thing. This is the title. It's a tiny story of life and science, but it can be also called, it's a story of life in science, or science of life. We will see, you can decide for yourself. A little disclaimer at the beginning. I will be showing some molecules. So for anybody who has traumatic experience with chemistry, I am warning you. So this is the question I like to... I will not ask you to name the molecules, I will not ask you the mechanism, so you are safe. Okay. So as you have guessed already, I'm a chemist, so this is what I do for a living, but this is also a passion. I will tell you why, if you study a chemistry, you really need to be passionate about. So I would work with some of these things, and some of the things you might know, this is for example water, the very simple molecule. Vitamin B12, where you are getting right now if you are having a beer, because beer is full of B12. So you have a little bit of hemoglobin floating to your blood now, because it kind of gathers the oxygen, so that's why you are not asleep right now. You might be by the end of this talk. And of course the DNA that gives us this individuality, and it makes us a little bit different. So as a chemist, I can tell you various things. I can tell you what is the biggest molecule. So for example, it's as big as a virus. Doesn't mean a lot, but it is big, trust me. I can tell you what is the smelliest compound. It's this one. And you can actually smell it. If I would just drop a little drop of this on my coat, you would be able to smell it a kilometer away. So, you know, this is how smelly it is. You don't want to work with this stuff. And of course, this is something what I can tell you as well. It makes a good conversation at a party. You know, usually, what is the most explosive? It is this kind of chemical which is named in a very boring way. So, you know, azido, azide. Actually, people say that it can explode even if you blink at it. So the pressure and the movement from your eye will make this molecule explode. So you don't want to mess around with this either. So this is, you know, how I entertain people at the parties. But I can tell you, being a chemist and revealing that you are a chemist at a party is not necessarily a good thing. Because you often get these two reactions. You get either, oh, I need to get another drink, or, oh, there is my friend coming, or you get this, a bad chemist. You get a lecture on what chemistry has done, which is bad in the world. And then I don't even have a chance to tell them that there is chemistry around us and it has done some good. So if you get this kind of things when you go to the parties, why would you actually study chemistry at all? It's not socially attractive profession. So the question is of course interesting, and I can tell you this is the place where I come from. It's in northern Croatia. It's a village that the current population is 21. So this is in Croatia still considered a village. It will be a hamlet in England, but in Croatia it's village. It does, you know, involve 21 inhabitants minus me. It's 22 when I come home. So this is what happens. And in Croatia, winemaking is a very non-posh activity. So in northern Croatia, every family will have a little vineyard. So I grew up making wine, and wine is chemistry. You do fermentations, and then you pick up the grapes, you do the fermentations, you get wine. So I was exposed to chemistry very early. Then I really like eating and cooking as well. Very good thing about chemistry as well. You need to cook lots of things. And then, of course, I was also concerned about environment, and I would see the effects of discarded rubbish, in the nature. So all of these things made me think, what should I study? And this was chemistry, because there is chemistry involved in all of this. And so the thing is, when you grow up in a small villages, or when you grow up surrounded with nature, you actually observe a lot. And this is, of course, something that is very important for doing the science as well. You observe, you ask questions. So I do remember that I asked myself, why do leaves get brown in the autumn? What is the reason for that? So I really, really wanted to know, and I didn't have anybody to ask in this village. But I had an excellent village school and an excellent chemistry teacher as well. And then you start to play around in the nature and you see the patterns. Seeing patterns and observing, it's very important as well to kind of practice a little bit of these scientific things. So then you create a hypothesis, sometimes. It's an interesting hypothesis. If you have children, you will know that they sometimes create very nice hypotheses. Then you try to test it. Then you get very confused because you started with something that was probably or maybe not right, and then you ask Google. So exactly this process happens in my daily life, often in Cambridge, with my research group. I do that to reveal the last part to my students usually. Okay? So why should we all let our inner child to be we all have our inner scientist. I sometimes do popular science talks, and people get scared because they think, wow, there will be lots of talk about the things that I have forgotten and I don't know any longer. And I tell them there is a chemist, there is a physicist, there is a biologist in all of us. We just need to play a little bit with this. And how does it help us to have a little bit of this scientist living up? We start looking at the things differently. And this helps us to change the perspective. Science helps you. Science doesn't accept fake news. Science doesn't accept lies. So you are continuously faced with the truth. And being faced with the truth means you need to change your perspective of it. So it's a continuous thing. It makes you inventive as well. So this is a friend of mine who told me I need some money, and he actually gave thinking lessons. I can put you in touch. It's very interesting. You pay $10 and you get an hour of a thinking lesson. He earned quite a lot, so this is very good. Learning releases the dopamine. Dopamine, it's a hormone of happiness. We release it when we do something that gives us pleasure. We know now from science that when you learn, there is lots of dopamine released in your brain. And so this is one more incentive to kind of let this inner scientist play a little bit and learn a little bit something. So this is what actually also understanding, and this is what I would always like to tell kids, and I do lots of talks for teenagers, and they don't really have a high attention span. But understanding makes us less afraid. And sometimes people ask me, but if you know and if you can explain all of the things, aren't they a little bit less magical? Isn't there a magic in the mystery? And I tell them, actually no. There is even more magic when you know things. Just imagine this fact, that we have 37 trillion cells in our body, more or less, depending on your weight and size. And these 37 million cells are working now in sync and make me stand here in front of you and talk to you. Isn't that magical? And then if you think, you also have very many connections in your brain as well. You actually have more connections between your neurons than there are stars in our galaxy. And they are all firing up right now. Some of them are asleep, because they can't all work at the same time. But these are beautiful things that make everything a little bit more magical when you know about them. And that's why understanding and knowing doesn't make things less beautiful. It makes them actually more beautiful. So let me tell you about Frukons. Where is this theory of Frukons coming from? So when I was in high school, I discovered Chernobyl. So we were talking about Chernobyl, we were talking about nuclear reactions, what actually happens. And I started thinking about particles. There are particles in physics which have very, almost magical properties, which behave totally unexpectedly, and which are causing certain phenomena in our universe, and they're also involved in nuclear reactions. They are also involved in chemistry. Some of them are electrons, some of them are neutrons, some of them are called quarks and bosons, and they have all kinds of magical names. And then I got the idea, and I was in high school. I want to have my own particle. I will be a physicist, and there will be a particle discovered which will be called a Frukon. It has a very good sound to it. Just in case if this doesn't work, because then I realized I'm not a very big fan of physics. I thought chemistry, Frukonium, sounds super cool. And there are some elements which haven't been discovered yet. So this is my chance. And then I thought, oh, what if I don't make it in chemistry? Philosophy. I'm still working on that. This is my plan B. So, you know, it might happen, so stay tuned. So what are Frukons, actually? They haven't been discovered yet. They are purely theoretical particles, and this is the table that describes them. So as you have seen, the mass can vary. The charge, anything but neutral. Okay, so you don't want to stay in neutral. Composition and appearance, no idea, but I'm thinking green, maybe a bit of curly hair, you just imagine. Antiparticle is anti-Frukon, and it causes vigorous combustion. I mean, the Croatians are Mediterraneans as well, so this might happen. Theory, yes, 90s, and lifetime seems to be stable, but slightly unpredictable. Okay, so this is what Frukon is. Stay tuned for a little bit more. Now, this is the graph of the Frukon detection. So if you put the Frukon count on one axis and you put the event on another, you will have, for example, a high increase of Frukons where you lost your job just to get a good one, which happened to me just before I came to Cambridge. So the concentration of Frukon was very, very high. You might have another event, like getting habilitation in organic chemistry. Habilitation is the highest degree in Germany that you get. And I got it in organic chemistry, but I should mention I failed most of my organic chemistry exam in the undergraduate. So just to tell you, these things can actually happen. The concentration of Frukons is very high in this event. Friends calling exactly at the time when you thought of them. So you probably experienced that. The concentration of Frukons is very high. And then realizing that there is only one ice cream flavor left in the shop, and this is exactly the one that you like. And then, of course, you see the Frukon level is growing. It's still not finite when you actually talk at the Bavard bar. The reason... Let me tell you about the recent example of a burst of Frukons. And this was just a month ago, and this was in Rome. This is a map of a Rome city center, and Rome is a city that I like very much. I have a collaborator, so I visit it often. So one evening after dinner, I just wanted to have a walk. So I was randomly changing my route several times, walking around the city center aimlessly, and it was 9 o'clock on Thursday, there were not many people. And suddenly I hear somebody calling Ljiljana. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? There's nobody that knows that I am in Rome right now. And I didn't recognize the voice. I turned around and I couldn't believe it. It was a friend of mine that I haven't seen for 15 years. We are in touch. He lives in Argentina. And we went to high school together. And then during the university we were friends. And it just happens that he was in Rome with his family, and he was wandering aimlessly through the city himself. And we met And this is unexplainable burst of Frukons that made it happen. So let's see what will happen then next. So you see, this is where we met. So I drew a little Frukon here. So the theory behind Frukons is that we all have them. So this guy, who's one of my favorite scientists, has a hook on, because it's a Robert Hooke, who actually discovered the microscope, which made possible 200, 300 years after my profession to really flourish. If he didn't discover the microscope, we would not have now also electron microscopes, and we would not have a nanotechnology, the field that I'm working on. These guys had their own ohms, Frukons and Watsons, and Frukons and so on. You might say they are not very poetic. Frukons sound very nice. And they were all involved in the discovery of DNA. So the fact about, oh, this is the one that I really want to show you, and this is Asimov's. Isaac Asimov, who actually said one thing that I really like about science. And he said that the most exciting phrase in science is not the eureka, but that's funny. And this is where Frukons are coming into the play. It's not about making the discoveries that you can predict or hypotheses that you can really test. The most interesting thing is when there is something very funny happening that you can't explain. Then the burst of Frukons is very high and you are on the path of discovering something really interesting. So when we talk about Frukons, you know, this guy had them when he drew this beautiful picture, which was just found in Spain. It's very nice. I have it hanging on my wall in my office because it's very mysterious and I try to explain. Or, you know, the random female I took from Google that works on some nanotechnology as well has it. Some artists have it. We all actually have it. And so, my message, go ahead and discover your own. You can name it whatever you want, and it will definitely make you happy. And when you come home, pick up that chemistry book that you have somewhere on your shelf, and it's collecting the dust, and have a little look at the beautiful chemistry behind it as well. So, thank you very much.